What happens if it pops on? There we go. So we'll start with the reading of the the agenda. In accordance with Master and the Law, Chapter 48, Section 11, notice is hereby given at the Bolton Zoning Board of Appeals to hold a continuation of the public hearing on Monday, October 30th, 2017, at 7 p.m. in the Board of Selectmen Room at Town Hall, 662 Main Street, Bolton, Mass. To hear and act upon the application of Bolton Cracker Barrel LLC, members Stenio and Denise Tallerina. The applicant is seeking a special permit for a property and structure located in Bolton's residential zoning district at 716 to 718 Main Street, identified Assessors Map 1.0 Parcel 36. The applicant is seeking a special permit to alter the pre-existing non-conforming use from office to retail office pursuant with Section 250-3C of the Code of Town of Bolton. So, with that, do you have anything to add?
Well, I just hope you've all seen Sten's renewed plan of what he would do for parking. I don't know if you've had the time to look at it. Do they all have that?
They do.
They have it in the packet. So.
Yeah, so what his idea was to take down part of the structure, which is just the access to the upstairs, which should be taken down anyway, put new stairs in. Then he thinks he can create a driveway from Main Street to Wattaquatic, if you look at what he's done there. He had some advice from some well-placed people in town, and they told him he could put the well underground. So that would give him access to put a driveway if you're looking at the building with your back to the common, the driveway would come in to the right of the building.
Is this supposed to be one way?
Yes.
And in which direction?
I think he was thinking it wouldn't necessarily come in from Main Street to the parking area, and then you could maybe not. I mean, maybe it depends on if it's in the morning, you might want to come in through Wattaquatic, but at night you might want to go out through the driveway.
I think I would prefer this exiting onto 117 because at least you got visibility both ways rather than backing out onto the...
You know, I'll tell you, I worked in that office for years. I've never had trouble backing up. And people are kind of considerate because they're coming around the corner and they can see our cars. But yeah, I mean, I think it could be designated one way or another.
Yeah, I think it should be one way. That's my personal thing. It would be one way from Wattaquatic to Main Street.
Yeah.
That's just...
I think he was going to, hear what your wishes are after you have reviewed his plan. He also provided a ramp, as you can see, an ADA ramp. And he also had ADA parking.
Jack, do you remember it's Board of Selectmen approved driveway cuts? I remember.
Usually
They do through, actually you applied for the driveway cuts through the...
highway department, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's the building department, building inspector and the highway department.
Right.
So it's, I mean, it is an issue because of its location, although when we were out there and looked at it, I mean, obviously it's a tight spot. And, knowing that it used to be used as retail and there's probably some retail uses that could fit there, I still think that, his scheme that he's got there will work as the right retail use. Obviously we don't want to see a 7-Eleven or something in there because that isn't going to happen. I suggested, I guess, at the last meeting that maybe what we do is if we agree that it can be, change of use goes back to retail, but somehow or other condition it upon the fact that when a retail use goes into the building, that it has to go through a site plan approval process with the planning board, just like it would if you were going to put in a different retail use in another building. That way that if it's an art gallery or something, it's not a big deal. You go through, you look at what we've got for parking, and okay, it works. But if it changes from an art gallery to some sort of a retail use that's high volume, the planning board at least gets a chance to look at it and say, well, wait a minute, this isn't going to work in the application. You've got to come up with a better scheme.
But even on the application, it talks about going, seeking this, to alter the pre-existing non-conforming from office to retail office. So how much office, how much retail they really, are they really anticipating to?
I don't think it can be a lot because, some people have looked for convenience stores, but that isn't a facility that can do it because there's no control over the water.
Mhm, right.
You got a tight tank, so who's gonna go in there and try to put in a convenience store? So, I mean, some of the uses, one of the guys that wanted to do that wanted to put in a computer sales and service. And we couldn't do that because that's not considered an office.
Mhm,
So I would think that somebody would look at the site and know the parking is somewhat limited.
mhm.
You can't do a high volume business
Yeah,
there.
no, I agree with you. I think that's what it is. I just, I don't think you can just leave it wide open to any retail use. You gotta somehow or other condition it, whether it's, and I don't think we're gonna sit here and say, well, you can do A, B, C, or D. I think maybe we say you can do it as retail, but somebody's gotta have some input.
Well,
Yeah,
don't
like
they,
I said.
with the special permit, isn't that reviewed by selectmen anyway?
Well, it used to be, not anymore maybe.
Well, we review Bolton Orchards when they make a change of use in their when they wanted to serve ice cream or when they wanted to do the kielbasa, we had a public hearing and a site plan approval for that, so I don't know whether we can condition. This will be,
Totally can.
right.
Mhm.
So-
This will be retail subject to approval by the Board of Appeals.
No, that's what I said, I thought with the special permit, when you look at what the town has, it's all approval by selectmen or whoever.
But this is a little bit different because this is a pre-existing
Yeah.
non-conforming use, so that
Yeah.
always falls under ZBA.
Yeah, well, I think that's reasonable because anyone coming in with a business would want to make sure it's blessed by the town.
I mean, his application or the narrative speaks to it, the home to be like a country specialty store, similar to others, antiques would be natural. So there's a couple items that he's mentioning, and he mentioned art, I think.
An antique store.
Art and
Art
antique.
Art
So,
gallery.
Yeah.
to the extent that if we were to, if there was some type of motion at the end to say, yes, we grant something with conditions, maybe you start with those items similar to what's been brought up, and then anything outside of that,
Needs to come back.
they come back with, for consideration at that
An
time.
amended special
Yeah.
permit.
Mhm.
I would agree with that.
Question in the back?
Yeah, Hank Amabile, 698 Main Street. I got here a few minutes late, but I was wondering, did you guys talk at all about your site visit last week or 2 weeks ago, and what your conclusions were about traffic and access and parking and that kind of stuff?
Okay.
So they presented sort of a revised plan with that. I think that
I
there's a
just
cover
gave
letter
them
with the cover letter with it that Sten
Okay, you let the governor know?
just noted what was, the highlights were that they placed a wellhead so that the driveway can be passed over. They rebuild an upper deck servicing the upstairs apartment, so it'll be accessed from the stairs. They allow the driveway access and egress on 117, and they'd also provide ADA parking and ramp access. So there was some discussion about having it one-way exit onto 117, or at least designate which way the traffic is going to flow so that there would be, less confusion. But that's to the extent we've had. It's only been a few minutes of the session.
The driveway is only permit one car, I mean, it's not wide enough for anything, so it has to be one way, I would think, just otherwise it's gonna confuse.
Right.
And we have not read your correspondence, but we will as well.
Yeah.
Martha Remington, Main Street. The Immobiles are now here. I was wondering, what is the side setback from your property on the west side of that building?
I'm sorry, Jen, did you say?
The setback from your property to, where's the line?
Oh, it's very close to the
To their-
Cracker Barrel.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
like 8
we
feet
know
away from
that,
it.
but what is
I
it?
don't know
It's
exactly, but
15 feet. It's 15 feet off the building.
yeah.
15 feet?
Yeah, it's 15
But then they
feet off the
wanted
building.
10.
Oh, it was 8 off the wellhead.
Yeah, but off,
I think it
it's
was 8 off the
8 off the
wellhead.
wellhead, but it's 15 feet off the brick building,
I see.
because I went out and measured it.
The only tree on that property that shows on Main Street, and there's some kind of an historic metal thing there too. I don't know if it's an old gas pump or what. would have to be sacrificed if you're going to put a driveway on that side of the building. That tree is tilting, but it's been there a long time, and I think even though Main Street isn't a scenic road, it is covered by the Mass General laws for shade trees. Because it's only maybe 6 feet from the sidewalk. So that'll look great. I don't know how, excuse me, there used to be a little colonial furniture shop there that was run by the place down in Clinton in the factory. It has folk art things. How did they manage having half of that building as a little shop? They sold reproduction, you know,
In the back.
chairs and things.
Yeah.
No, it was in the front. They had the right side of the building, and there were real offices on the left side of the building. How did they operate?
I have no idea, because I wasn't around at that time.
Well, I think you were.
No, there was
It was
Woodward
in
and
the
Son
80s.
there. Woodward and Son was there when I came.
Well, anyway, that was a retail business, and it was pretty popular. But I don't think we should get rid of a shade tree just to allow, I mean, another driveway, another curb cut, because it would have to be a curb cut, you know, sidewalk, the whole thing.
And what are the options for on-street parking there?
Not much. Out front on Main Street is about it.
Yeah,
You can't park next to the side of the building
Right.
because it's,
yeah.
But you shouldn't park 20 feet from the intersection, but otherwise you can park all the way up to Manor Road on both sides of the street. We have on-street parking.
yeah, but water aquatic's pretty tough in that congested
Well,
area.
you just
Yeah,
can't
you do walk
park
on it.
20 feet to the intersection. That's a state law. So you'd have to walk a tiny bit.
People don't want to do that, unfortunately.
Well, we have sidewalks there.
Eric Nolan, Bear Hill Road. I was just gonna say, if you look at a recent planning board special permit, we do list the uses very specifically, like wine shop, this type of thing, antique store, and we list out, I think for like 626 or 478, we have a list of maybe like 20, 30 different things of what would be allowed, and then some specific things that wouldn't be allowed, and that if there's anything outside of that, I forget how exactly we word it, if it's like a substantial change or something, they have to notify the planning department, and if they feel that they need to come in for it, then
Yeah.
we have 7 days to respond saying we want them to come in.
Right.
So that's actually stipulated for that building?
Yep, for the property, yeah, yeah.
The uses are very.
I'm confused. Can you say that again, please?
Oh, so planning board, it isn't responsible for this because it's pre-existing non-conforming, but when, for 626 Main Street and 470 Main Street, which is a potential new business, we specifically list out what would be allowed. We don't just say retail, we say wine shop, antique shop, I mean, like specifically list out restaurants and stuff for that particular property, and then specifically list things that wouldn't be allowed, like, I think we say like on-site dry cleaning, we don't allow stuff like that. And if there's anything outside of those uses, the owner has to report it to the planning department, and the planning department, and I guess it would be ZBA in this case, has like so many days to respond back that they want to open a hearing for it, right?
Yeah, typically if it fell outside that
Yeah.
to list, I would say, okay, we need to schedule either,
Yeah.
it's a meeting, with the board, or it becomes a public hearing with the board where they
So-
either amend the special permit or.
Right.
So we
So I guess
we would look at this, as we say, we start a piece through it saying, okay, they're looking for potentially antiques,
Yeah.
country,
Right.
and say, okay, these are the
Yeah.
items that they're envisioning that they're asking for,
Mhm.
and so if we were to draft something,
Yeah.
we'd say, in substantial conformity with
Yes.
these items,
Yeah.
any outside of that, yes, they'd have to come back and.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the planning board does. So it gives the town a check, I guess,
Right.
for
and-
something is drastically out of line with what you expected.
Yeah, unless the applicant is very specific that we want to do A, B, and C.
Yeah,
If it's open, we try to use whatever parameters we can to, not have the bandwidth so wide.
yeah,
And then
exactly.
have them know they do have to come back if they decide to do something totally different.
I think, like you said, that list that he gave is probably, and, repair shop or, low run type uses.
Yeah, I mean, who's gonna try to do a big use there with the limited?
Yeah, you can't, yeah.
Right.
But it could be spelled out that the intent is for low volume traffic or
Mhm.
retail use.
Can I lead you, sorry, I'm supposed to address the board, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Hank Mobile, 698 Main Street. So, Mike, a couple of questions. One is, when we had the last meeting, which was a couple of weeks ago, it was discussed about a potential contingency, that there'd have to be some kind of a review mechanism or a process, and I think Mr. Sargent recommended something like site plan approval or something like that. Because one of the things that I wonder is about things like regulations about number of parking spaces, per square foot of building, and that kind of for different uses. And retail, characteristically has very high parking ratios, and it just requires it because, and most zoning regulations in different towns require high parking regulations for ratios, I mean. And so is that what that means, that it would need site plan approval, like those kinds of things, like the number of parking spaces for the type of business and so forth would be considered and would have to be dealt with? I'm a little confused about this thing about, because it's pre-existing non-conforming, it comes to you guys versus when it would go to the planning board, because the planning board, I think, has a lot of pretty strict ways that they deal with things, and you guys are kind of dealing in the gray area. And I just wonder if, how we get it so that it's in that stricter definition and have some mechanism for that. And I think that was suggested last time, but I don't know if you guys have discussed that anymore, and then another question related is there I'm not sure about driveways right on property lines, how that works in the zoning regs. I'm not sure if that's allowed or not.
I don't believe so. Our driveway bylaw really refers to residential
Yeah, I know.
driveways. We don't
That's-
have a bylaw that references commercial. So I would say no, but I'm gonna double check.
It's also a pre-existing non-conforming use, and, as a result, the zoning doesn't really apply to it, other than either you disallow it completely.
But you couldn't create if it's pre-existing non-conforming, you can't make it more pre-existing non-conforming.
Correct.
And that's what I'm asking about, is kind of like,
So that's been the policy of the board, not to create a worse situation.
Right, so we have to, when we do have to make a decision on it, what we have to look toward is, somewhere, that, we look at the other pre-existing non-conforming structures or uses may be extended or altered on special permit. If the Board of Appeals finds that such extension or alteration must substantially be more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing non-conforming structures or use, and they have some guidelines, generally an increase of not over 100% of the original floor area of the building at the time of the adoption of zoning, or not over 50% of the ground area in that use shall be considered as not substantially more detrimental. So if they were to say, well, we're going to add a second floor, a third floor, and double the space, there's some guidelines there that, well, that's going to be significantly detrimental to the property, to the use, to the area. So to the extent we can, to address your first question, look at the nonconformity and say, yes, if we were able to go back to a retail, mixed retail or office, in some type of conformity to what they're envisioning, which is small use, and then have, whatever conditions that we can put on it with, parking. If whatever parking was ultimately, whatever business use was there, we could say parking has to be approved. We always try to go to the police department, because I'm not a parking specialist, I'm not a planner, designer. We try to bring in the boards and say, okay, have them review and opine that it's safe, that it meets whatever requirements of lighting or things like that. So we try to build those in, but again, as you mentioned, we're not the planning board, we don't have those specific, because we have to go case by case, we don't have that type of specificity in
But
it.
the planning board does.
The planning board does, but it's not a special permit planning board because it's a pre-existing non-conforming use. So-
But if you had a contingency that would need to be looked at by the planning board and approved by the planning board, is that, I mean, that got mentioned a couple of weeks ago. Maybe that's just absolutely not possible.
We generally will ask for input from the boards, so whether it be Board of Health, Planning Board, because we'll get their guidance, and if they have any recommendations that we can then incorporate into the decision or into the case that's going in front of us. So we certainly use their inputs.
And I'd just like to add to that too, Gerard. Per Mass General Law, the board's decision cannot be contingent upon another board's approval.
Right.
We would get in trouble for that.
So we can't
if we-
defer the decision.
No,
to
we
the
cannot.
planning.
So we can't just say we're gonna put it in the planning board and let them figure
That's why we go and ask them for
out.
advice, but we don't.
We can have, like Gerard's completely right, we can ask for input, but we cannot condition it so that it goes to planning board.
So,
Okay.
Eric,
Question here, and then we'll,
well, I was just,
comment.
I was just gonna respond to him, I was gonna say, it wouldn't come to us, but I think you could put a stipulation that on change of use, you know, you could have some review period or something, you know.
Well, right. so we always say-
catch those things, you know.
That would be under this board, not.
Yeah, under your
Yeah,
board.
so
Yeah.
as you said, we usually say if
Yeah.
they say the three things that we think they're asking
Yeah.
for,
Yeah.
or meet the spirit of what they're
Yeah.
asking for now, and anything outside of that,
Yeah.
then someone would have to, because this
Yeah.
decision would be
You can create-
filed, and they'd have to, you know, and the new owner would have to say.
You can
well,
create your own checks and balances within
That's
your
right. Mhm.
area.
And then when they do come in with
Yeah.
a new use or
Yeah.
expanded use,
Yeah,
then it would be open
Yeah.
meeting, we, you know,
New hearings,
solicit,
yeah.
new
Yeah.
hearing, we solicit comments from whatever the board is necessary, or police department, or, you know, and then go from that decision there.
I have a question for the board in general, looking at this revised flow pattern. Is this an improvement or not? I guess is what,
Still looks tight to me.
yeah. Is it better than what's there now, or is it
I don't know.
make it worse? I
Do
don't
you mind if I comment on that as well?
No,
I don't think it's an improvement. I actually think it's more of a detriment, only because if you're pulling in using that, is the intent for that drive that one way to come in or out?
It was just one way, whatever it was.
Well, either way, I just don't see how a car that's parked can either get out and maneuver to get to that driveway if it's an exit, or if someone coming in, even if they pull in and down, there's no way for them to actually be able to park. They'd still have to pull out into Watt Aquatic and then park, so I don't see what value it adds. I think it just creates confusion.
Especially if
The
they're
layout.
relying on parking on the street.
Yeah.
Well, I think that he did it because of the input from the police.
Okay.
I think that's why he did it. I thought he understood from everybody that,
I think the
That's what he
police,
said when we were there, that
Yeah.
the police suggested we could get away
they
with
did.
it.
Yeah.
I also think that, because I did a site visit with the chief of police. I also don't think that the chief of police, we totally understood where the property
Yeah.
lines were and how far that parking lot could be expanded to,
well, you can
whether
go
or
through
not
the
you
bamboo,
create
but
a
not too
traffic
far,
aisle.
because Hank's tree is really right at the park, at the line. He can get
Yeah.
rid of some of that bamboo. We double park, that's what we used to do. We used to go that way, and it worked. And actually, it used to be that I could actually turn, because you know, when people left, I could actually turn around and go out like this.
Yeah.
So,
I think part of the problem we have with it is it would be a whole lot easier to make a decision if we knew what was actually gonna go in there. You know, if,
I
you
know, but I can't.
Yeah, and the problem from your perspective, from Sten's, is you can't go and market the thing and say, well, we can give you space, but we gotta go back to the Board of Appeals and see it's okay. It makes it a little bit of a,
It's hard right now because he's limited, because
you know.
most people want retail. And I have to say to them, I'm sorry, you can't do retail here, and if you want to do a convenience store, don't even come near me.
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to happen. And I think that's why he thought if you could have a little more versatility, there'd be more appeal. And we need somebody to take over that building and do something nice with it. You know, I think it's one of the cornerstones of
Well, yeah, and
Bolton, and I
you
think
know,
it needs.
well, the other problem is, you know, when you have it, especially in old buildings,
Yeah.
once you leave it empty for a while,
Yeah,
everything starts to deteriorate. You don't want to see the thing
Yeah.
fall apart over time. That's an issue.
and I think the ramp has to be done, but that was gonna be expensive for him to do it, because he was gonna knock down that whole, I mean, this was gonna be expensive. He was gonna, you know, put the well underground, he was gonna knock off that whole section and put new staircase up. I mean, he was trying to do it to, I think, ameliorate everybody's, you know, thoughts about the traffic, but, you know, it's been there. I mean, you know, you can't remake something that's already been there.
It's a very tight lot.
Are the number of spaces that are identified, is that too many, or is it
Well,
just?
that's what I was just gonna add. I know we have a requirement that says how many spaces per square foot.
It's a very unique bylaw that we have for parking. I can read it to you. I think it's 3 times the amount of square feet that he has for retail. Just read it.
I don't know what the size of that building is.
Well, it's 1,800 square feet.
1,800 on the first floor.
First floor.
Does that include the back?
Yep. 1,800 total.
Yes.
I have it done by I have a floor plan done.
Yeah, there's a total of 11 spaces, 2 of which are reserved for the tenants upstairs. So
Right.
these are 9 spaces for 18. So that's a space for every 200 square feet of retail.
Yeah, it says a parking area, not including access ways, of at least 1 square foot for each 3 square feet. For each 1 square foot, I'm sorry, I'm reading this poorly. A parking area not including access way of at least 1 square foot for each 3 square feet for each 1 square foot of retail building floor area shall be provided.
One more time?
So
That's the way that it's written. That's the way that
it
it's
sounds like it's supposed to be 1 square foot of parking for every 3 square feet
So
of
then we'd have to compute
retail.
the square footage of the lot,
Well, if
the
that's,
parking lot. We don't know what the square footage of the parking lot
if
is.
that's what it is, if it's 1
No,
for
they're
every...
20 by 10 spaces, I think.
1 for every 3...
6,000 square feet of parking?
So that would only, I mean, that's minuscule. I mean, if it's 1 for every 3 square feet, you'd only need 600 square feet.
I think it's the
Apart.
opposite, actually.
Yeah.
It's the other way
3
around.
times,
It's the other way
3
around.
times 3
So
amount
if
of
you needed
parking.
3, if it was the other way around, you'd need 5,400 square feet. And you've got 1, 2, well, you've got 9 times 200.
Just a side note, planning board is working on a parking bylaw because we're not in line with any other
Yeah,
town.
they require significantly
I
more.
mean, yeah, it'd be
It's-
huge.
The only
You'd
use
have
I could,
electric-
the only use I could see of the current bylaw is to dissuade businesses from of a building. You'd have like this huge, giant,
Yeah,
you know,
that's-
parking lot in front of every single, it doesn't make sense.
It sounds like we have 1-to-1 between the parking, if it's 1,800 square feet and it's 20, you know,
Hmm.
by 9,
Yeah.
200 by 9.
Yeah, well, you got 4 customer parking spaces, it looks like maybe 5, depending on,
Does that parking bylaw even apply to pre-existing non-conforming anyway?
No.
No, no, yeah.
So,
it
Just
does.
looking at the guidance.
Yeah.
we're just trying to do public safety.
I mean, it just seems to me if you had, I mean, you've got 9 parking spaces the way this is laid out, even if you didn't extend the driveway out to the street. You get 9 spaces for 1,800 square feet. Seems more than sufficient. I mean, I think about even convenience stores in Hudson and Clinton that have, you know, like 8 or 9 spaces for a CVS store or not a CVS, like a little peach store or something like that. It seems like it's sufficient. It's not easy to get into and get out of. That's the other issue, but
Especially if they were all full.
yeah, if they're all full and
If you
you're,
have, one, every once in a while, someone pulls, like,
Yeah.
you can 3-point turn,
You're
whatever,
right.
in and out, you know.
in an office use, it's not bad because you pull in parking, you're gonna be there all day. But if people going in and out of there, it gets pretty tight.
Right.
Well, the police are just up the street, so.
You know,
Yeah, flag them down.
They'll do it.
It'll be 24-hour in the wrong way anyway.
You need a body shop across the street now.
Lawyer.
Sooner or later, they're gonna have to put a light up there, because
Well,
it's tough when the police have to get out.
Hmm.
Not when their sirens are on and their lights are flashing,
Yeah,
it
but-
shouldn't be, right?
Yeah, but I'll tell you, it's hard. We've seen some near misses, and when I worked in that building, we used to hold our breath. The police would come out, and it was like, oh my God.
All right, so Martha, any question?
Mr. Chairman, I think we're missing the point here. Pre-existing non-conforming is for older buildings, in this case, a very historic building, which did not conform to the 1972 zoning bylaws that were put in effect by the town. We can't make a silk purse out of the sow's ear. I'm worried about the people that are upstairs. There are 2 affordable housing units up there. There have been cases in town where we had pre-existing buildings that were expanded well over the 100%. And there were regrets by the Board of Selectmen when that happened. I don't know if you remember what the salt box looked at first. You went in the door and there was the restaurant on the other side, forget that. But there was a candy store on the right and a little gift area. And in the back of that, they also had some convenience items. I don't know what the square footage on the first floor is, but you must remember the candy, you know, that, and it was really cute. And I thought they said they wanted to do a country store. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the thing is, we want to keep it so that the building isn't lost, that it's taken care of. But I don't know why he's not approaching attorneys or professional people, you know, who don't have a lot of traffic in and out, but they've got a fair amount of space for desks and things. I think that would make a perfect attorney's office, because they don't have a lot of doctor's equipment and things.
We've had an attorney look at it, but it doesn't work out for them.
Well,
Yeah.
he's not the only attorney in the city, right? The point is, I'm just, in the character, I think if it lost that tree because the driveway was put in, it would really spoil the rental next door, and there's a monument that commemorates the first town hall there, and it would just ruin it. And even Japanese knotweed now, bees are making honey out of it, so it's not as frowned upon as it used to be. So, I mean, I respect the fact that he can't seem to sell it, but sometimes it takes time for these things to fit. So, sorry.
You back?
Just a comment, Gail of Montblanc, 698 Main Street. There was a time where, on the far left-hand side of that property, going towards 720 Main, which is our rental property, when it was open, and people used to sneak through and come out of our driveway to avoid the center. And that was happening both ways. So whether it was, if there is an open driveway, I mean, if there is a driveway that's put in, I would imagine people would try to scoot around. We had it happen so often that we had to really fortify the exchange between the two properties.
No challenge for the owner, but, yeah. Go ahead and comment, because I was gonna try to introduce you with you've written.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know whether you wanted to speak to that, or do you want us to?
Well, no, I mean, bottom line, we just feel like it's premature to grant this change of use. And with all due respect to Sten and his wife, who are very nice people, it's just, office works, it has worked, and retail, even with the stipulations that are in the planning board, I really think that the traffic and the safety are huge issues, and I didn't mention it in my written document, but, because I really hadn't even thought about it, but there's definitely an issue as it relates to tenants that want to rent our property. Our property, we try to keep it very, very nice, and that's an 1831 or something, and it's, you know, so it fits right in with that whole thing, and tenants really like living there, and we're really concerned about what could happen next door. And, you know, I know, like an antique store, that wouldn't be a big deal, I don't think, but it's very hard to narrow it down, as Mr. Sargent said, you just don't know what's going to be there. And so to kind of make a special foray on this situation for this particular thing, I'm against it. I just think it's premature. I really think the traffic needs to be studied. All the feeder roads that come into 117 are disasters. I've lived in Bolton for over 30 years and in that house for 20. And we all know, we're on 117. The traffic has just gone up exponentially. You know, unless we have another huge recession, which we all hope we don't, it won't change. It'll just keep getting tougher. And the feeder roads are really tough. You know, Wattaquatic being one, Manor another, Harvard Road. And so I know that there are people like right upstairs in this building tonight that are talking about that kind of stuff and studying it seriously. And I'm not saying never retail, I'm just saying not without a lot more thought into it. So that's maybe the bottom line.
The only thing I have to say about that is it was retail. So, I mean, it's not like they're trying to, you know, change it entirely. It always has been retail until the office.
Yeah.
Until the real estate office.
In all frankness, our traffic on Main Street in the last almost 40 years I've been here has gotten really obnoxious. You know what I mean? I used to let my animals out in front. Well, you know, it's gotten worse and worse and worse, and now we're sort of stuck with it. But I'm worried about the tenants upstairs too, because if he wanted to do that, bring the stairway up, you know, into the building, we might lose people. We need affordable housing. We lost 3 units when the common went in. 3 units of affordable housing. Thank you.
How about, as a possible solution, that we think about what uses we would permit in what's there, and come up with a very short list of what would permit antique store, you know, art gallery, etc. And that would give a little more latitude to the use of the building. We wouldn't put the driveway in, because there seems to be a consensus that that's not a great idea, so. And go with that. If you could come up with 2 or 3 permissible uses, that would expand its use to some degree, but not making it wide open, would that work?
I would think, you know, if you had a little boutique in there,
Right.
you know, I think if we could come up with some.
I think
Or
we
it could
still
be a
work.
jewelry
Something-
store, a
Yeah,
craftsman or
something
something.
that would be great for, you know, craft center. You know,
Yeah,
local craftsmen.
exactly.
But
But the
if
thing
it
is,
is a gallery, you could do a lot of,
you might change it, and then this opportunity comes and we have to meet again and change it
But
back.
that's okay.
That's
That's
not.
okay.
That's,
That's,
Mhm.
I think it's a
I
process.
think you're just adding, right? You're
Yeah.
not changing, you're not taking office
Well,
away.
they could still do office. The intent would be for office or retail in that, or a combination of those.
Or limited retail and, you know.
Yeah.
What if it's retail by appointment, like say you make jewelry or something and people come in, but it's not huge volumes of people, except maybe on the weekend or something when the traffic is.
Oh, even that, you know. It's not a high volume business probably versus McDonald's or something.
well, we don't want a McDonald's. We
No,
don't
I'm
want
just
a
saying,
Starbucks there.
that seems absurd. But, you know, an art gallery, you know, people go in and look
A
at
little
it.
country store would be great there.
Country store would be okay.
You
if
know,
it's
right
not-
across from the common. Then people would walk over from the common, they wouldn't drive, so that would be really smart.
I guess, you know, my concern is, do you want to do that? Do you want to specifically state A through F or whatever it is, or do you just say, you know, we tell Stan that, you know, we'd be willing to,
Right.
you know,
We'll look
discuss
at
it.
Yeah.
You know, if you come back with something. You know, my feeling is if you put, and maybe it's just me, if you say, you know, well, these are the 5 things we want, 99% out of 100, they're gonna come back with a 6th one. This is what the guy wants anyways. Or whether you just say, we're open to discussing a retail use, just present one to us and we'll move with it.
well, if we start with some examples and then say something similar, low traffic.
All right, if you wanna do that, that's
Yeah.
fine, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I think leaving it vague doesn't give people something to work with. You say this and this and this, and they can get thinking, oh, well, that could work for me, and then if it's
Right.
similar, low traffic, you know.
Personally, I think any change to retail, to allow retail is ill-advised. think it just creates too much traffic and safety concerns for this property. So you're welcome to talk about potential uses, but for me, I don't think it works.
And it's a tough piece of property, no question about it.
Remember when Laurel's Learning wanted to set up her tutorial, her tutor place? That would, I mean, it's a busy intersection, but that could probably work for tutoring.
Yeah.
Parents drop them off.
No, office space, professional office space would be the ideal application for properties, but that hasn't been working so far.
Of course, then, no. There's a lot of office space available in town anyway. I mean, there's a
Oh,
lot
yeah,
of-
no,
There's a surplus of office space.
The other thing to keep in mind too, when I was reading through the original application, I noticed that Coldwell Banker moved out in April 2016, is that correct? If you look at our bylaw for pre-existing non-conforming, if it's been out for 2 years, then it
1 year,
reverts
it's been
to
out for a year.
conformity.
Yeah, it's getting close to
So he only
two.
has a couple months left
Yeah.
really to make this work.
So if nothing happens, then that
It goes to
goes
residential.
Goes back to-
Yeah,
Couldn't you just like rent it out for $1 to somebody, you know?
that's up to him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to keep the office at least.
Could that support another apartment in it, going back to residential?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
That
You
would
got a
be
tight
some
tank,
changes.
that's the
Yes.
problem. Board of Health would have
Yeah.
Yeah.
some serious issues.
Yeah, it's tough with the
And then
way, with the septic system,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's got a
The
tank.
building would
Well,
really,
yeah, but that's a flat amount every month. You divide it by 3 or however many people are there, right? The owner doesn't necessarily eat that,
Yes,
Does he?
he does. Yes, he does.
is it more than 200 or 300 a month?
700.
What's that?
Whoa!
Septic tank?
Mhm.
Oh, it's at least,
Tight
yeah,
tank.
it's gonna say be at least that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you put another apartment in there,
Yeah.
you know, you've got 110
Okay,
gallons.
well,
per
I'm
day
going
per
on
unit,
old
yeah.
figures. I thought it was 200 or 300. I didn't
No,
know it
it's-
was
No.
a
yeah.
swimming pool.
So we've a couple options that if we thought about granting the application, we have some ideas of what would be recommended allowed uses. But then if we said, well, why give ideas where, to Jack's point, is they may want to fit something else in and they have to come back here. So then you could say, well, if we denied it, what's the impact if we're denied and they want to then come back? Could they
I don't know.
reapply for?
I don't know if
within-
there's a time frame in which they have to wait to then reapply. I'll look, I can go and look it up, I just don't know it off the top of my head. That's the only issue with that.
It is for a variance, but I don't think
Yeah.
for a
Not
special
Special permit, yeah, I wasn't sure, so.
No, I guess I don't have any, if you're gonna say, go back with a list, I don't have any problem with that either. I mean, you know, like I said, you throw out 5 different items or whatever that he suggests that could possibly be used, and maybe it's, you know, a hook to catch somebody, and if they're off a little bit, they're just gonna come back and talk with us again, that's all, so.
And the other thing the board can do too is add another condition that also states the prohibited uses, like a convenience store, just so that it's clear, no one's wasting time thinking, oh, I really want to do this, let me go back to the board.
Any kind of food service.
Yeah, or
Right,
any kind of
yeah.
food service, be very clear, you can definitely not do this, you can do this, and if it's something in between, you can go back to the board and seek an amendment.
So if you were to vote in conditionally, when does the parking get addressed?
Special tank for that.
I think when they try to then do something, incorporate that use. So if they then say sold the building and the prospective owner comes in now and says, okay, I have this building that's now permitted to be a low-use art gallery, you know, okay, this is what we're gonna do. You know, if they'd have to, if they have 6 spaces and whatever can use and that's on there, then that's what's allowed. I guess to the extent it then becomes a problem, we would come back to the board, but we wouldn't do a we don't do necessarily traffic reviews.
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying is,
It's all about the traffic.
would there be site planning review there? It seems like that's problematic.
Or, I mean, I think well, it depends on the trip generation, what retail use you're bringing in. I mean, the board, I think, could certainly condition it so that, any new use, well, any of the uses that are, you're saying would be allowable, would be low volume, so I don't see
Right.
why they would need to do any type of traffic study for that, because it would be comparable to the office use that was there before.
And the
If you're
existing
looking at-
spaces are there, they're not
Right.
creating,
Right.
making new spaces, they're just using the spaces that are already on site. Correct?
Right. I mean, in the future, if it was a use that had somewhat higher volume, maybe you then request further study, a traffic study, or an actual engineered plan to show the layout. I mean, I think that certainly would be fair.
I just wish that somebody, you could put in that, depending, when anybody goes into the use, you have some sort of a site plan approval. The issue being that once a building is rented out to somebody, they start a business, and then they find out that it's successful, you don't want to come in and say, oh, look, guys, can't do that there anymore because, you got too many customers. What do you do with them at that point?
It happens.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
does happen,
it's-
but
the
it-
building inspector would have to go knock on their door and say, look, you're not conforming to your special
Yeah.
permit, you're gonna have to alter your business. I mean, it happens.
Mhm.
It's unfortunate, but it is what it is.
Well, could you use the businesses that we discussed? I mean, everybody has come up with a good idea for a business. Like an art gallery or, craftsman place.
But is this something that you're representing STEM, I guess, tonight? Denise, anything that we're saying, I mean, is that what he's envisioning? Like, not
He was
the board's
envisioning
because
a
we're not-
country store.
We're not here to make make it work, right? We're here to decide upon
What the uses
applicants.
would be.
Right, or that we're to decide upon the application to allow retail slash,
Office.
even rather than just office, so that's all.
Yeah.
And we have ideas on things, but, those are,
So it has to be generated from him.
well,
Is that what you're saying?
I've had numerous
yeah.
conversations with
You've
Stan,
talked to them.
over
Yeah.
several months on
Mhm.
this, and I think his vision is just to be able to preserve that building. That's probably number one.
Right.
He loves that
Yeah, he
building,
loves that
would love to
building.
see it be sold and be used and maintained.
Mhm.
Whenever we've talked about uses, he has a very specific vision. Really, the country store, that was number
Mhm.
one. But he's mentioned antique store, he's mentioned specialty gift store, he's mentioned the art gallery, and then even a clothing store. To me, those are all low-volume retail spaces.
clothing boutique, so.
The parking that was done for Caldwell Banker, the double stack, that's not allowed in zoning, I don't think. So if you had, really, this plan shows, someone counted them, was it 6 spaces when you,
No, it's
Ten
got-
altogether, nine altogether.
total,
well,
one-
it's 11 total, 9 of them would be for the business use,
Yeah.
2 of them for tenants.
Because we used to put 14 people into 9 spaces
yeah, I
because
just
we
wondered
tandem park.
because, yeah. I don't know how without that
I don't know
driveway.
how you did that.
Well, we did it, see?
Yeah, I know.
We all had
I
Mini
used to
Coopers.
see.
No, I mean, we really did. If you ever came by on a Wednesday, I mean, we were almost out of the street, let me tell you. I mean, we had to be really careful where we were parking. But, we'd have office meetings on Wednesday, and then the parking lot would be crazy. And we parked out front too. You could park down by Hanks and back to the library if you needed to. Yeah. I mean, my thoughts for you.
We made a suggestion that you guys, what if- well, first we have to decide we're gonna approve it, I guess. And if we decide we're gonna approve a change of use, what if we drafted a list of uses and then run it by STEM, see if he's agreeable to it before we actually enacted it as an approved thing. I don't know if we're there, because I know Andy's not in favor of approving it, but I mean, if we made that type of movement on, at least we could draft something up, put it together, and before we make it a legal document, make sure that it's something that he thinks is workable from his standpoint. I kind of feel, he asked me the day we were there if I thought he had to be here tonight, and I told him I didn't think he had to fly all the way up from Florida. That maybe it was a mistake on my part, but I haven't him come. But.
No, well, his point, he wanted to talk about parking, and he was asking for your advice, your input when you guys did the parking.
Yeah.
To the extent we're looking at either narrowing or broadening, depending on how many uses we thought maybe, but at the end of the day, it's the applicant's project, not ours. And while we can be helpful in, interpreting and seeing if they fit within the interpretations of, it doesn't make it more detrimental if we follow the guidance that's in the Mass General Law, then, we could decide and have, but I would like to know that's his buy-in, their buy-in, the applicants versus ours,
Yeah.
So I'm not against that. I don't know, do we have a time limit on once the application
Yeah,
has been opened?
now that the hearing's been open,
Yeah.
there is no time frame at this point. I mean,
I can call him. Do you want me to call him?
we could continue the hearing one more time, I can, I started to draft a decision,
Right.
not one way or the other,
Right.
but,
The
if
generic
the board
fix.
feels that they are gonna approve it, I could write it that way with the list of
Yeah.
the uses that we talked about. I could then send it to Stan, have him weigh in, we could meet again, and then go from there.
Right, because I still, even with the uses, I understand the novelty, but just the general concern, like, we're not, the parking's there, it's a bad parking situation to begin with. So, to the extent we're trying to do low volume, we're probably not gonna make it worse. I mean, our goal would never be to make it worse or make it a more unsafe situation than it is. We're looking at it to see what makes it work better. We'll solicit the police department and people's input that are professionals that know more, but I still want to be sure that, at the end of the day, when we have to decide, is it more detrimental or not, that we take seriously. The uses may sound nice and they fit in, but, that's not an insignificant concern. The concerns you have about, safety and impact on, people's current existing living situation, if you have tenants there or, and they have a right to not have to worry either, so we have to think about those things. So I think a continuation wouldn't be bad, and then we can have Stan look through if you want to modify the draft and have it generic so that it doesn't look like it's one way or the other,
Right.
And then we can have a specific input on that. Does that work? People have time in their calendars to extend it one more go-around?
Oh, jeez.
Because all of a sudden it'll be 2018, yeah.
They all fly back up again. Come on, Stan, come back up.
We'll likely have another meeting before the end of the year too for variance for country covered. So just putting that out there that we'll probably meet 2 more times before the end of the year then.
So how many, what do you meet, twice a month?
No, they don't, they only meet as needed. I was just letting them know
Oh,
that they
okay.
probably have to meet 2 more times.
Anyone have any ideas on when their calendar is not open?
I'm pretty much free most of the time.
So how about 2 weeks from today? What's that put us
That would
at?
be the 13th.
13th?
Do we need 2 weeks?
Oh, I haven't just done the,
I can have this drafted tomorrow probably and send it to him, so.
How about,
Even a week, I think, would be
so what's
fine.
next week? At,
The
six?
sixth.
Six?
Okay.
I
Does that
can't
work?
do Monday.
Can't do Monday? Oh, yeah. Can you do Wednesday? Eighth?
I can do Wednesday.
Unfortunately, I can't do Wednesday, I have planning board that night,
Okay.
but that doesn't mean you can't be, I just won't
No.
be here.
Yeah, but you're-
Tuesday?
Is Tuesday the election day?
Election day?
Yeah, I was saying
You can't be
do
in
it
an
right, that's what I
election.
said, so,
No.
Thursday?
Thursday.
Thursday? I can.
Thursday's good for me.
Thursday.
All right.
I have something Thursday.
Oh,
Well, maybe it's 2 weeks then, the 13th.
yes. 13th.
Monday the 13th I can do.
Okay.
Okay, so it's the
Does that work?
13th, yeah.
All right.
So 11, 13, that's 7,
In Board of Selectmen room.
be yours.
7 o'clock here.
Mhm, Yep. Mhm.
So what exactly are you drafting?
So, well, we always have to draft a decision with our, for any decision we make. So Eric has been sort of incorporating the notes of, you know, the hearing and the application, whatever, and putting together a template of what we would have as a draft decision. So we can get all the facts and circumstances into a document, not have a decision on that document, but at least start saying, okay, the application is for X, Y, and Z. If these are the board's preliminary findings, here they are. If these are the items that we think they're looking for, low use, clothing boutique, art gallery, country store, you know, we can start spelling those out, and we could have, where Sten or the applicant is not local, they can look at that and say, is this what you're looking for? Because if it isn't, it's wasting our time as far as, you know, broader use, or you tell us exactly what you want, because again, it's not this isn't our project, it's a city project. So it's just another way to capture, you know, we got all these notes that ultimately has to get put into a decision.
That sounds like you're moving towards that direction.
A decision, but we could just as well have the facts in there and decide as a board, you know what, well, these are the facts, we still can deny the application. The same facts would be there potentially if we apply, if we granted them, you know, so it's just sort of starting to put together the idea, so that once we make a decision, we have a time limit on when we have to have a signed decision issued, so it just helps the process. It's not giving him a decision one way or the other.
Yeah, well, it just sounds like it's moving in that direction.
But we have to make a decision unless the applicant withdrew the application because they don't know what they want to do.
Yeah.
We have to decide one way or the other. So,
And the thing we also know is that he will not be the final applicant. He's the applicant for this, but not for whatever's going to happen in there.
again, right, so we would, if that's part of what we're talking about, in there we could decide that if we go anything outside of it, someone has to come back with, to the board with other items. So, you know, it's just the starting point of what we have to do, but at least it helps us too, because we have something that starts to pull together the multiple inputs that we get throughout the meeting.
It limits the
Don't you
scope
just
of what he
skip
can
this
do.
whole thing until the next person that buys it comes and,
Well, the next person who
Well,
buys it would be stuck
wouldn't
with whatever
know.
use that's...
Right, someone may
Yeah,
not
that's the
want
point,
to.
is
Yeah.
trying to get retail so that there's a wider possibility
right, it
of
just seems like
buyers.
we've got a beautiful idea from someone who's selling his business.
of
And
building.
he's, the building.
Mhm.
And he's got a great thing, and we're all trying to work with him and say that would sound great, because it would.
Well, he's asked for a special permit
Music lessons?
to include that
To turn it
particular
off.
use. So that's all we're.
Oh, I see.
Right, so the special permit
Okay.
is not necessarily that he's selling it, it's just, he's asked us to make a decision on, to allow the use to be both retail and office.
Right.
rather.
And we're still
So we
kind of,
still have to decide on whether we can allow that use, so this is all working to that decision, yes or no.
Mhm.
But
So in gathering all this information, will we do the zoning on the exact size of the parking and all that? Because I look at this and I say, I don't know, I know Jack, I know you walked the space, but I don't even see how this could work.
Well, they're talking about not having that drivable.
No, I mean, how this.
No, they're talking about that not just being what the existing footprint is right now.
Right,
Mhm.
and getting,
So we'll have the same footprint that it's right now. There's no access.
Ain't no access on.
No access from 117.
And still
no,
getting
understand.
10 people, I know, and still
Yeah.
getting 10 cars in, so that's
You
where I was
probably
like.
can't get 10 cars in there, so you might get 5 or 6, you know. And hopefully
Right.
that type of business will be sized for that.
So that
building.
would be talked about, and all that zoning would be done, and that information would be presented
Yeah.
in the little pamphlet you're getting together, a document to
Will be our
make a
decision. It's the information within the decision, the facts that we've looked at, things like that. Mhm.
Okay, thanks. That
Really think of the
clarifies.
word shop, SHOPPE, instead of retail, you know, a shop. You
Well,
can
that-
cover a lot of little things, right?
You can cover a lot of things, but it's retail, that's, the use is retail,
Right.
not shop. Right?
But-
Mhm.
It can't be food,
You got that?
it can't be
The pretty-
expansive, it's gotta be intimate.
Mhm. Low volume. Okay, so, so we have a motion to continue the hearing till November 13th at 7 PM in the Board of Selectmen office.
I make that
All
motion.
right.
I'll second.
Second by Jack. So all in favor of the motion to continue to November 13th, 7 PM in this office? Aye?
Aye.
Okay.
Tell you how bad the traffic was. When I was in high school, there used to be a basketball hoop on the Waterquatic hillside. We used to play basketball.
He sounds like a town story.
That's crazy.
That's how
So
things-
where,
On the Waterquatic hillside of this building. it was-
on this same property, right?
Yeah, there was a basketball. We used to play Waterquatic Hill.
Game on, game off, right? The car would come down the street at some point,
The
right?
car came, you just get out of the way, let it go by, and you keep playing.
Right,
That's all.
Interesting.
well, that was a way a lot of ways in the
Yeah.
past, right?
That's what it is.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I almost forgot myself.
Well, you know,
So-
it's gotta be something